The supply chain isn't breaking. It's quietly being rewritten while you're scanning your membership card at the door. Dot. If you walked into a Costco this morning, you likely assumed that the sheer physical scale of the warehouse is a guarantee of stability. Massive steel racks, shrink-wrapped pallets stacked 12 feet high, and a corporate purchasing engine so powerful it can bend global suppliers to its will. It feels permanent. It feels immune. But right now, across 7 specific aisles, a slow-motion liquidation is happening in total silence. 7 staple Kirkland signature items, products that millions of households treat as permanent fixtures of their monthly budgets, are quietly clearing off shelves. Once the current inventory liquidates, they will not be restocked until at least 2027. No press releases were issued, no clearance tags were hung, no notices were sent to the millions of app users who purchase these items on complete autopilot. The first whisper of this didn't come from a retail leak or an internal memo. It came from a raw import data stream monitored by a procurement analyst who tracks container freight and customs filings for a living. 2 lines buried in a bill of lading manifest confirmed a series of suspended purchase orders and cancelled supply allocations. 7 Kirkland products. 0 restocks until 2027. When you pull the underlying trade filings, the agricultural yield reports, and the maritime bill of lading records, a cold mathematical reality emerges. This isn't a temporary shipping delay, and it isn't a routine vendor negotiation. What we are witnessing is the convergence of 3 separate systemic shocks: geopolitical tariff shifts, severe agricultural harvest failures, and raw material input panics, all hitting the warehouse club model simultaneously. Costco's entire business model relies on a delicate, high-volume contract structure. When global spot prices for raw ingredients spike beyond a precise threshold, or when physical yields collapse, the Kirkland private label mechanism breaks. Costco refuses to sell a substandard product under its primary brand, and it refuses to absorb a 40% margin hit. So, instead of quietly diluting the quality or hiking the price overnight, the buying teams pull the plug. They let existing stock run dry, pull the active item numbers from the system, and wait for the multi-year cycle to reset. The most dangerous part of this dynamic is the illusion of abundance. Because Costco utilizes deep pallet storage, a product line that has been completely cut off at the primary trade level can still look fully stocked on the warehouse floor for weeks, sometimes months. You see a full pallet, assume everything is normal, and buy your usual single unit. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the distribution centers are already empty. The pipeline has run completely dry. By the time the floor inventory vanishes and the dreaded Death Star, the small asterisk in the top right corner of the price tag, denoting a discontinued item, appears, the market window to secure a buffer has already closed. The items disappearing from shelves right now are not obscure seasonal novelties. They are foundational pantry drivers, high-density proteins, and core household goods. Number 1 on this list is a non-food staple that sits in the carts of roughly 1 out of every 3 members, a product whose underlying material cost has just been crippled by an international trade ruling that almost no consumer paid attention to. The clock on these 7 items is actively ticking. The inventory you see on the floor today represents the absolute end of the pre-crisis supply chain. Once these pallets clear, the wait isn't a matter of weeks, it is a multi-year lockout. Understanding why these items are vanishing requires looking past the clean, brightly lit aisles of the warehouse and tracking the raw, messy friction of global logistics, failing harvests, and economic policy. The disruption is already here, running silently under the radar, and the cascade starts with an aisle most members walk past without a second thought. The roots of the current inventory depletion across Costco warehouses trace back to a sequence of structural shocks, legislative shifts, and environmental disruptions that began converging in 2021. To understand why 7 core Kirkland signature SKUs are facing extended shelf absences stretching into 2027, it is necessary to examine the specific economic levers and geographic realities that govern Costco's private label sourcing model. Costco operates on a lean operational framework, maintaining approximately 3,800 active stock-keeping units, SKUs, per warehouse, compared to more than 30,000 SKUs at traditional supermarket chains. This extreme selectivity means that Kirkland signature products are manufactured under rigid, high-volume contracts. Suppliers are bound to precise quality metrics, strict price-per-unit caps, and absolute volume guarantees. When an external shock breaks a supplier's ability to fulfill any of these three conditions, the Kirkland contract mechanism halts. Unlike traditional retailers that pass spot market price surges directly to consumers or accept lower-grade ingredient substitutions, Costco's procurement policy dictates an immediate pause in inventory replenishment once pre-negotiated allocations run out. The first structural break involves item number 7, Kirkland's signature wild Alaskan pink salmon. The origin of this disruption lies in the biological cycle of Pacific salmon populations and state-level resource management data. In April 2026, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, ADF&G, issued its commercial harvest forecast, projecting a total pink salmon catch of approximately 56 million fish across state-managed waters. This figure represents a severe drop from the 2025 harvest, which yielded over 118 million fish. The collapse in harvest volume concentrated heavily in Prince William Sound and the Southeast Alaska Management Areas, two regions that supply the primary canning facilities contracted by Costco's seafood division. Following the ADF&G report, Seafood Industry Monitoring Agency Erna Barry verified in May 2026 that Costco's buying team declined to execute secondary market supply contracts at elevated spot prices. Because federal regulations and marine stewardship certifications require strict provenance labeling for wild-caught salmon, packers could not blend alternative species or farmed fish into the Kirkland 6-pack format. With total domestic pack volumes down by more than 50%, distribution allocations to commercial buyers were reduced. Costco chose to clear remaining warehouse stock rather than accept higher wholesale rates or alter product specifications, locking in an inventory hiatus through the 2026 packing season and delaying any potential shelf recovery until early 2027. A similar dynamic dictated the fate of item number 6, Kirkland's signature organic extra virgin oil, 2-liter format. The supply collapse for this SKU was caused by an agricultural crisis in southern Europe that unfolded over an 18-month timeline. Spain accounts for nearly 40% of global olive oil production, with the Andalusian region serving as the core production center. In March 2025, an unseasonal, sharp frost damaged olive flower buds across key growing zones in Jaén and Córdoba. This freeze was immediately followed by a prolonged drought and extreme summer heat waves that persisted through October 2025. In January 2026, the Spanish Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food officially reported the total national olive oil yield for the 2025-2026 harvest season at 580,000 metric tons. This represented a 35% decline from the previous year's yield and a 50% drop compared to historical 5-year averages. Concurrent losses occurred in Italy, where the Italian National Confederation of Farmers, Coldiretti, confirmed a February 2026 harvest total of 195,000 metric tons, the lowest national volume recorded in 2 decades, caused by widespread olive fruit fly infestations and persistent water scarcity in Puglia. Data from the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, Economic Research Service, shows that global bulk olive oil import prices escalated rapidly as a result. Average import values reached $8.74 per litre in the first quarter of 2026, compared to $5.20 per litre in the first quarter of 2024, marking a 68% cost increase over 24 months. While long-term futures contracts protected Costco's retail pricing throughout late 2025, those agreements expired in early 2026. Sourcing managers at major club channels communicated to commercial trade buyers in March 2026 that the 2-liter organic olive oil SKU would enter scheduled out-of-stock status starting in June 2026. Because certified organic olive groves suffered higher yield losses than conventional farms and require strict traceable auditing, alternative supply sources could not meet Kirkland's volume thresholds. The withdrawal of item number 5, Kirkland's signature 2-year-aged UK cheddar, was driven by international trade policy rather than environmental factors. In March 2026, the Office of the United States Trade Representative, USTR, announced the conclusion of a 5-year tariff suspension agreement with the United Kingdom. Effective June 15, 2026, Section 301 tariffs resumed at a 25% ad valorem rate on specified British agricultural exports, including high-fat aged cheeses. Analysis published by the American Action Forum in April 2026 calculated that the 25% tariff added between 2.10 and 3.40 per kilogram to the landed cost of imported UK dairy products. Dairy trade publication Cheese Reporter confirmed in May 2026 that multiple US warehouse chains, including Costco, suspended forward import contracts for traditional UK-aged cheddars. The long maturation cycle of this product, requiring a full 24 months of controlled cave aging to develop characteristic tyrosine crystallization, prevented suppliers from adjusting production timelines or altering milk sourcing to mitigate the tariff's financial impact. As pre-tariff warehouse inventory clears, the product is being removed from active distribution networks pending trade policy renegotiations. The escalation of inventory disruptions across Costco's network reached a critical threshold in the second quarter of 2026, as domestic regulatory enforcement, crop diseases, and structural cost shifts impacted the remaining 4 items on the procurement blacklist. The operational reality facing warehouse managers involves managing depleting store-level inventory, while trade logistics data confirms that primary production channels have halted. Item number 4. Kirkland Signature San Marzano Italian canned tomatoes, 6-pack. Illustrates how strict legal certifications can turn a localized agricultural outbreak into an absolute supply outage. Under European Union law and United States customs regulations, tomatoes labeled as San Marzano DOP, Denominazione di Origine Protetta, must be cultivated within 41 designated municipalities in the Agro-Sarnese-Nocerino region of Campania, Italy. These tomatoes must adhere to rigid physical specifications, including elongated shape, dual pulp structure, and specific brick sweetness levels. During the summer of 2025, an outbreak of bacterial canker caused by the pathogen Clavibacter michiganensis infected tomato fields across the Sarno River Valley. In September 2025, Italy's Institute for Environmental Protection and Research, ISPRA, published a technical assessment documenting that the pathogen affected approximately 22% of the certified growing area. The resulting yield decline rendered local processors unable to fulfill multi-year supply contracts signed with international retail buyers. Customs and trade data reported by the Packer Trade publication in April 2026 revealed that U.S. imports of Italian canned tomatoes dropped 18% year-over-year in the first quarter of 2026. Because Kirkland's signature guidelines prohibit substituting non-DOP plum tomatoes under the San Marzano label, Costco's buying team invalidated non-compliant supply runs. As store inventories in the United States decline to zero, replenishment remains legally blocked until the 2026 harvest is processed, inspected, and shipped in early 2027. The disruption of item number 3, Kirkland's signature organic chicken broth, exposes the vulnerabilities inherent in tightly regulated domestic organic supply chains. Under the USDA National Organic Program regulations, livestock and poultry raised for organic certification must be fed a diet consisting exclusively of 100% certified organic feed ingredients. Substituting conventional feed during cost spikes results in immediate decertification of the animals and derived food products. In February 2026, the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service reported that national spot prices for organic corn reached $11.40 per bushel, representing a 28% increase compared to January 2025. Concurrently, organic soybean prices rose 22% to $19.80 per bushel. These price increases severely impacted the profit margins of commercial organic poultry farms across the Midwest and Pacific Northwest. Costco's primary co-packing partner for organic broth, Pacific Foods, issued formal allocation notices to major commercial clients in March 2026. The notices confirmed a 30% reduction in aseptic carton output throughout the second and third quarters of 2026. The reduction was driven by a combination of surging feed costs and a recorded reduction in active organic flock sizes, as smaller farm operators exited the organic certification program. Rather than increasing retail prices on the high-volume 6-pack carton format, Costco prioritized distribution of higher-margin single cartons, effectively removing the bulk multi-pack from warehouse floors until raw feed markets stabilized. Item number 2, fresh Atlantic salmon, represents a direct collision between international taxation policies and daily fresh food logistics. Norway controls approximately 60% of the global farmed Atlantic salmon export market. In January 2026, the Norwegian Parliament formally enacted a revised aquaculture resource tax framework, imposing a 25% ground rent tax on coastal salmon farming operations, effective retroactively against 2025 earnings, and continuing through 2026. In response to the tax legislation, major Norwegian producers adjusted their operational strategies. The Norwegian Seafood Federation reported in February 2026 that leading producers, including Mowi ASA and SalMar ASA, reduced their planned 2026 harvest volumes by 8% to 14%. Capital expenditure previously allocated for biomass expansion was diverted to meet new tax liabilities. In March 2026, Costco's seafood category directors notified regional distribution hubs that fresh Atlantic salmon portion allocations would be reduced, particularly across West Coast and Upper Midwest fulfillment centers. The reduction in available volume resulted in observable changes at the warehouse level, including thinner portion cuts, variable color grading, and frequent out-of-stock conditions in fresh display cases. Item number 1. Kirkland Signature Flushable Wipes, 720 count, sits at the center of the largest industrial supply chain disruption on this list. The product relies entirely on non-woven fabrics made from viscose staple fiber, a cellulose-derived material produced by dissolving wood pulp. In February 2026, the United States Department of Commerce issued a preliminary affirmative anti-dumping determination in case A560845, covering imports of viscose staple fiber from Indonesia and India. The Commerce Department imposed preliminary dumping margins ranging from 15% to 38% on major foreign producers. Subsequent economic impact studies published by the American Action Forum in March 2026 estimated that these duties would increase overall input costs for domestic non-woven fabric manufacturers by 20% to 32%. Non-Wovens Industry Trade Journal reported in April 2026 that Costco's purchasing team initiated a temporary pause on active replenishment for the 720-count flushable wipe SKU. Facing sharp increases in raw material costs, the buying team opted to halt production while re-evaluating fiber blend ratios, packaging sizes, and contract terms. The current product configuration